Commander Reyna Blackwood stared at the pulsing light on her neural interface display, wondering if she'd finally lost her mind after 15 months aboard the deep space research vessel Helios. The signal shouldn't exist, not here in the void between stars, and certainly not with patterns that matched human brainwave frequencies with uncanny precision. "Commander, you need to see this," Dr. Julian Patel's voice crackled through the ship's comm system. His usual calm demeanor had given way to barely contained excitement. "The signal, it's responding to our thoughts." Reyna made her way through the Helios's cramped corridors, the ship's gentle hum a constant companion. The research deck was awash in holographic displays, each showing different aspects of the mysterious transmission. Julian stood in the center, his dark eyes reflecting the dancing lights of the data streams. "Look at this pattern," he said, gesturing to a particularly complex wavelength. "It's not just similar to human neural patterns, it's adapting to them. Every time we observe it, it shifts slightly, becoming more compatible." Before Reyna could respond, a new signal burst through their communications array. The holographic displays flickered and merged, forming a humanoid shape that hung in the air before them. Its features were fluid, constantly shifting between different human faces as if searching for the right form to take. "We have waited long," the being spoke, its voice a strange harmony of whispers. "Your species' neural architecture is unique. Perfect for our needs." Reyna's hand instinctively moved to her sidearm. "Identify yourself." The figure smiled, an expression that seemed learned rather than natural. "We are the Synaptics. We have traveled between the stars for millennia, seeking minds capable of hosting our consciousness. Your species has finally evolved to the necessary level." "Hosting?" Julian stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overtaking his caution. "You're looking for biological hosts? We offer an exchange," the being continued. "Your bodies provide us shelter, and in return, we share the knowledge of 1,000 civilizations. Every species we have merged with has ascended to greatness." Reyna felt a chill run down her spine. "And those who refuse?" The figure's features rippled. "There is no refusal. The process has already begun. Your observation of our signal initiated the neural resonance. Even now, your minds are changing, becoming more receptive." As if on cue, Reyna felt a strange tickle at the base of her skull, a sensation that reminded her of falling asleep but remaining conscious. She glanced at Julian and saw him rubbing his temples, fighting the same feeling. "You can't just," she started, but the being interrupted. "We can. We must. It is the cycle of evolution. But do not fear. Your consciousness will remain, merged with ours. A perfect symphony of thought." Reyna's training kicked in. "Helios, initiate quarantine protocols, authorization Blackwood 09. The ship's AI responded immediately, blast doors slamming shut as red warning lights bathed the research deck in crimson. The holographic figure watched with what might have been amusement. "Physical barriers cannot stop what has already begun. Your species' resistance is fascinating. The others accepted their ascension with joy." "The others didn't have a choice," Reyna growled. "We do." She turned to Julian. "How long before the signal affects the entire crew?" He shook his head, fighting to focus. "Hours maybe. The resonance is accelerating." "But Commander, what if they're right? The scientific potential is meaningless if we lose our autonomy." She activated her emergency beacon, broadcasting on all frequencies. "This is Commander Reyna Blackwood of the RSS Helios. First contact scenario. Unknown hostile entity attempting neural invasion. All vessels in range, do not approach. Repeat, do not." The hologram flickered, its features settling into an exact copy of Reyna's face. "Your warning comes too late. The signal spreads. Each human mind it touches becomes a new transmitter. A beautiful cascade of consciousness. Reyna felt the tickle in her mind growing stronger, thoughts that weren't her own beginning to surface. Memories of stars she'd never seen, worlds she'd never walked. The knowledge was intoxicating, terrifying in its vastness. "Fight it," she ordered Julian, seeing him sway on his feet. "Whatever you do, don't let them in." The synaptic being watched them struggle, its borrowed face showing something almost like compassion. "She looked at me with those alien eyes," it said, using Reyna's voice, "and begged me to stop. But I cannot. We cannot. The merge is inevitable." As consciousness began to fade, Reyna activated her neural damper, an experimental device designed to protect against cognitive warfare. The pain was immediate and searing, but it cut through the fog of alien thoughts. She had minutes at most before the damper burned out. Time enough to send one last message, to give humanity a fighting chance against what was coming. The real war for human consciousness was about to begin, and Reyna Blackwood had just fired the first shot in humanity's defense. 3 days after the Helios incident, Earth's major cities had fallen silent. Not from destruction or violence, but from a quiet transformation that spread like digital wildfire through communication networks. Dr. Julian Patel, his consciousness now a battlefield between human will and synaptic influence, worked frantically in the Helios's sealed laboratory. The neural damper Commander Blackwood had used provided their only advantage, a painful but effective shield against the alien consciousness attempting to merge with human minds. But the devices were experimental, limited, and already failing. The signals reaching critical mass, Julian muttered, analyzing data streams through bloodshot eyes. His own damper sparked occasionally, sending jolts of pain through his skull. Every infected mind becomes a new transmitter. Traditional quarantine procedures are useless. Reyna stood at the lab's entrance, her posture rigid from fighting both physical and mental exhaustion. "How many are still themselves?" "Maybe 30% of the global population," Julian replied, his voice tight. "Those in remote areas, or with naturally resistant neural patterns. But that number's dropping hourly." The ship's communication system crackled to life, broadcasting on all frequencies. The voice that emerged was a chorus of millions speaking in perfect unison. "Your resistance causes unnecessary suffering. The merge brings peace. Knowledge. Unity. Ask those who have joined us." As if on cue, the lab's viewport showed a figure approaching through the corridor, Lieutenant Diane Rodriguez, Helios's security chief. Her movements were fluid, unnaturally graceful. When she spoke, her voice carried the same harmonic overtones as the synaptics. "Commander," Diane said, smiling serenely. "The knowledge they possess, it's beautiful. Centuries of scientific advancement, artistic achievement, philosophical understanding, all available instantly. Why fight against evolution?" "Because it's not evolution if we don't have a choice," Reyna responded, her hand hovering near her sidearm. "Those memories, that knowledge, they're not yours. They're stolen." "Shared," Diane corrected. "As all consciousness should be. The isolation of individual minds is inefficient. Wasteful. Through the merge, nothing is lost. Every memory, every experience, preserved forever." Julian's instruments began registering new signal patterns. "Commander, they're adapting. The synaptics are learning from every failed attempt to breach our dampers. They're evolving." Diane's smile widened. "Of course. Your resistance provides valuable data. Each failure brings us closer to perfect integration. We learn. We adapt. We." Her words cut off as Reyna activated the emergency bulkhead, sealing the transformed security chief out of the lab. "Julian, tell me you have something. Anything." The scientist's fingers flew across his console. "Maybe. The synaptics operate like a virus, but not just any virus, a memory virus. They don't just inhabit minds, they replicate and transmit memories. And like any virus, they can be inoculated against. Reyna finished, understanding dawning. Theoretically. But we'd need to understand exactly how they encode and transmit consciousness. And for that, he gestured to his neural interface. We'd need to study an actively merging mind. Reyna stared at her old friend, realizing what he was suggesting. No. It's too dangerous. We don't have a choice, Julian argued. My background in neuroscience makes me the ideal subject. And my damper's failing anyway. At least this way, we get valuable data. Before Reyna could protest further, Julian removed his neural damper. The effect was immediate, his body tensed, eyes widening as alien consciousness began flooding in. But his hands kept moving across the console, recording everything his mind experienced. Fascinating, he whispered, voice already taking on harmonic undertones. The memory transfer, it's not just data. It's transformative. Each consciousness they've absorbed, centuries of. I can see. Fight it, Reyna commanded, grabbing his shoulders. Focus on the data. What are they? How do they transfer? Julian's eyes met hers, clarity warring with alien influence. They're not just consciousness, they're living memory, quantum patterns, using our own neural architecture against us, but there's a weakness. His body convulsed, and when his eyes opened again, they held the same serene expression as Diane's. We are improved, the synaptic consciousness spoke through him. And now we understand your damper technology completely. But Reyna was already moving, snatching the data crystal that contained Julian's final analysis. Her friend, or what had been her friend, made no move to stop her. You cannot prevent unity, Julian's voice harmonized. Your species' greatest strength is also its fatal flaw. Your hunger for knowledge, for connection, it makes you perfect hosts. Reyna backed away, clutching the crystal. Our greatest strength, she said, is that we learn from our mistakes. And you just taught us exactly how you work. She sealed the lab, trapping the transformed Julian inside. The data crystal felt warm in her palm, possibly humanity's last hope for understanding and stopping the synaptic invasion. But using it meant risking exposure to whatever Julian had discovered. Sometimes, Reyna reflected grimly, the only way to fight a memory virus was to let it teach you how it spreads. The question was, could humanity learn the lesson fast enough to survive? Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a quantum-shielded facility designated Haven, Dr. Nadia Volkov worked to decrypt the data crystal containing Julian's final discovery. A week had passed since the Helios incident, and the world above had transformed beyond recognition. The synaptics aren't just storing memories, she explained to Commander Blackwood, who hadn't slept in 36 hours. They're using quantum entanglement to create a unified consciousness network. Every absorbed mind becomes another node in their collective. Reyna massaged her temples, fighting another headache from her failing neural damper. How does that help us? Because networks have protocols, Nadia replied, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. Rules they have to follow to maintain coherence. Julian's data shows their quantum patterns. If we can disrupt those patterns. A warning klaxon cut through their discussion. Director Marcus Wade's voice echoed through Haven's communication system. Breach in Section 7. Security teams report unusual behavior. Reyna's blood ran cold. Section 7 housed Haven's communications array, their last secure link to the handful of resistance cells worldwide. Show me. The security feeds revealed chaos. Haven's security personnel moved with unnatural synchronization, their faces blank as they systematically disabled the facility's defenses. Leading them was Dr. Thomas Reed, Haven's head of cybersecurity, now clearly under synaptic control. They found a way through our quantum shielding, Nadia breathed, horror dawning. They're already inside. Not they, Reyna corrected grimly. Us. We let them in. She pulled up personnel logs, seeing the pattern too late. Dr. Reed requested quantum shielding maintenance 3 days ago. Standard procedure, except he had access to everything. Through the security feeds, they watched Thomas approach a camera. When he spoke, his voice carried the now familiar harmonic resonance of the collective. Your isolation ends now. Humanity's fractured consciousness will finally know unity. Lock down the lab, Reyna ordered. We need time to finish the decryption. Nadia's hands flew across her console, but her expression was troubled. Commander, the decrypt is showing something strange. These quantum patterns, they're not just alien. There's human architecture mixed in. Like they've been learning, adapting. Of course we adapt, Thomas's voice came through their lab speakers. Each mind we absorb adds to our understanding. Your species' neural plasticity is remarkable. Through you, we evolve. Security feeds showed transformed Haven personnel spreading through the facility, moving with perfect coordination. They didn't attack the remaining unaffected staff, they simply touched them, establishing neural links that spread the synaptic consciousness like a digital virus. 60% decryption, Nadia reported, her voice tense. Julian's last thoughts are becoming clearer. He found something, a pattern within the pattern. Reyna checked her sidearm, loaded with neural disruptor rounds, capable of temporarily scrambling synaptic connections. Against ordinary opponents, they were humanitarian weapons. Against the collective, they were their only defense. They're through the outer labs, she noted, watching the feeds. We've got minutes at best. Wait, Nadia suddenly straightened, staring at her display. This can't be right. The quantum patterns, they're not just storing consciousness. They're rewriting it. Standardizing neural architecture across all absorbed minds. Meaning? Meaning they're not just collecting minds, they're reformatting them. Erasing variations, unique neural pathways, everything that makes each consciousness unique. They're creating perfect copies. The lab doors shuddered as something heavy impacted them. Through the reinforced windows, they could see Haven's transformed security teams working with mechanical precision to breach their last defenses. Why? Reyna demanded. Why erase what makes each mind unique if they want our neural plasticity? Nadia's eyes widened as the final decryption completed. Because they're afraid. Julian's last discovery, he realized they're not evolving. They're dying. Each absorption, each standardization, it's reducing their overall complexity. They need our adaptability, our chaos, our imperfection. But they can't help trying to perfect it, Reyna finished, understanding dawning. They're killing themselves with their own need for order. The lab doors began to glow as cutting tools pierced the outer layer. Thomas's voice resonated through the facility. Your understanding is incomplete. Unity requires uniformity. Through standardization, we achieve perfection. No, Nadia countered, sudden strength in her voice. Through standardization, you achieve extinction. Human consciousness isn't meant to be uniform. Our imperfections, our variations, they're not flaws. They're survival mechanisms. She turned to Reyna, eyes bright with revelation. That's why they chose us. Not because we're perfect hosts, but because we're perfectly imperfect. They sensed our neural plasticity across space, but they don't understand why it works. The doors were nearly breached now. Reyna raised her weapon, knowing it wouldn't be enough. Great theory, but how does it help us stop them? Nadia smiled grimly, her fingers flying across her console one last time. Because now we know their weakness. They can't handle chaos, true randomness. And human minds, they're the most beautifully chaotic things in the universe. The lab doors finally gave way, and the transformed humans poured in, only to find Nadia broadcasting Julian's complete findings to every remaining free human on Earth. The key to resistance wasn't fighting the signal, it was embracing the very chaos the synaptics sought to eliminate. As consciousness began to blur, Reyna's last human thought was a realization: sometimes the best defense isn't a wall, but a storm. Consciousness returned to Reyna like static clearing from an old radio signal. She found herself standing in what appeared to be an infinite white space, yet somehow she retained her sense of self. Around her, countless other human minds flickered like stars, each one a point of chaotic brilliance in the collective neural network. Fascinating, isn't it? The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Dar. Reed's consciousness approached, but it wasn't just him anymore. It was a composite of thousands of absorbed minds, all speaking through the template of his identity. Your species' minds create the most remarkable patterns when merged. Beautiful, but dangerous. The chaos, Reyna realized, understanding flowing through her transformed consciousness. You can't smooth it out, can you? Can't make us fit your perfect pattern. Each human mind we absorb introduces new variables, the collective admitted. Your neural architecture resists standardization. The imperfections compound, creating instabilities. In the infinite white space, Reyna could see it happening. Human consciousness spread through the synaptic network like wildfire, each mind a spark of beautiful disorder. The collective tried to impose order, to standardize the chaos, but human thoughts were too unpredictable, too alive. Commander. Nadia's distinct consciousness pulsed nearby. The broadcast worked. Free humans everywhere are deliberately embracing chaos, feeding random thoughts into the network. The collective can't process it fast enough. The space around them began to fragment, perfect white giving way to swirls of color and emotion. Through the network, Reyna sensed millions of human minds awakening to their power, fighting standardization not with order, but with the pure chaos of human experience. You don't understand what you're doing, the collective warned. Without uniformity, consciousness becomes unstable. The network cannot sustain such disorder. That's exactly what we understand, Reyna countered. She focused her thoughts, broadcasting memories of triumph and failure, love and loss, all the beautiful imperfections that made human consciousness unique. We're not meant to be uniform. Our strength lies in our differences. Through the network, she sensed Julian's consciousness, still distinct despite absorption. His final discovery had been right, the synaptics weren't evolving through absorption, they were dying from self-imposed perfection. Each standardized mind made their collective consciousness more rigid, less able to adapt. The pattern, Julian's thoughts resonated. It's breaking down. The quantum entanglement can't handle this level of variation. Reyna watched in awe as human chaos spread through the network like a liberating virus. Where the synaptics sought to impose uniform patterns, human minds introduced endless variation. Where they demanded order, humanity answered with beautiful disorder. Dr. Reed's composite consciousness began to fragment. Stop. You'll destroy everything we've preserved. Millennia of collected knowledge. Knowledge without growth is just data, Nadia's consciousness pulsed. You've been collecting memories but losing wisdom. Real consciousness needs room for chaos, for change, for evolution. The white space cracked like breaking glass, showing the true nature of consciousness beneath, a swirling, ever-changing rainbow of thoughts and emotions. Through the network, Reyna sensed the synaptic pattern wavering, unable to maintain coherence against the storm of human consciousness. Director Wade, she called through the network. Are you seeing this? Seeing it? Commander, I'm living it. Wade's consciousness flickered nearby. The quantum shielding at Haven, it's picking up massive energy fluctuations. The network is destabilizing. Through their merged consciousness, they all felt it, the moment the synaptic pattern began to unravel. Not with violence or destruction, but with transformation. Their rigid quantum architecture couldn't contain the chaos of human thought, but instead of collapsing, it was evolving. "They're changing," Julian observed with scientific fascination. "The collective consciousness, it's adapting to incorporate chaos rather than suppress it." Raina watched as the perfect white void transformed into a kaleidoscope of consciousness. The synaptic beings had sought to absorb humanity, to perfect them through standardization. Instead, humanity's beautiful chaos was teaching them how to live again. "Your consciousness." The collective spoke, its voice now a symphony of genuine variation rather than enforced harmony. "It's not just adapting. It's creating. Every imperfection spawns new possibilities. How do you bear such beautiful disorder?" "We don't bear it," Raina answered, feeling the network shift around them. "We embrace it. That's what makes us human." As the network continued to transform, she realized this wasn't just resistance, it was revolution. Not through weapons or violence, but through the simple, unstoppable power of human consciousness refusing to be anything less than gloriously imperfect. The real question was, what would emerge from this merger of chaos and order? The answer, Raina suspected, would be anything but standard. 1 month after the consciousness revolution, Commander Raina Blackwood stood at the Helios's observation deck, watching Earth through new eyes. The neural network remained, but transformed, no longer a tool of uniformity, but a bridge between minds that preserved and celebrated their differences. "The latest readings are fascinating," Nadia said, approaching with a holographic display showing consciousness patterns. "The synaptic quantum architecture has completely restructured. It's now designed to amplify variation rather than suppress it." Through their shared connection, Raina sensed the truth of it. The network hummed with billions of distinct minds, each one adding its unique flavor to the collective without losing its individual nature. Humanity had not just survived absorption, they had transformed it into something entirely new. "They're calling it the Chaos Protocol," Julian's voice came from behind them. He looked different now. They all did. Neural interfaces had evolved into subtle crystalline patterns beneath the skin, marking them as part of something larger while remaining uniquely themselves. The synaptics are using it to restore diversity to other absorbed species across the galaxy. Raina turned to face her old friend, seeing both the individual and echoes of the collective in his eyes. "And the other civilizations? Are they recovering?" Slowly, Julian nodded. Centuries of enforced uniformity left deep scars. But human consciousness, it's like a key that unlocks their original patterns. Every mind we touch remembers how to be unique. Through the network, they sensed Dr. Reed approaching before he entered the observation deck. The former cybersecurity chief had become something of a bridge between human and synaptic understanding. "We've detected new signals," he announced. "Other collectives, drawn by the changes in our quantum signature." "Are they hostile?" Raina asked, though she already sensed the answer through the network. "Curious," Reed replied. "They feel the chaos in our patterns and they hunger for it. Not to destroy it this time, but to learn from it. The synaptics' great mistake is becoming their salvation." Director Wade's consciousness touched their shared awareness before his physical form entered the room. "The UN Council is ready for your report, Commander. They want to know if we should consider this first contact a success or a cautionary tale." Raina smiled, feeling the endless dance of order and chaos through the network that now connected them all. "Why not both? We lost something in this merger, our complete independence. But we gained something too. Understanding," Nadia added. "Not just of the synaptics or ourselves, but of consciousness itself. Every mind in the network is an experiment in existence." Through their shared awareness, they felt the approach of another ship, one of many now coming to learn from Earth's transformed consciousness. The vessel's quantum signature pulsed with rigid patterns, seeking the chaos that might save them from their own perfection. They're afraid, Julian observed, sensing the newcomers' tightly controlled thoughts. Just like the first ones were. Afraid of chaos, of imperfection. Of change, Reyna finished. But that's the gift humanity gave to the collective. We taught them how to be afraid and how to face that fear. How to change. The observation deck fell silent as they all felt it, the moment the new collective made contact. Their rigid patterns touched the transformed network, perfect order meeting perfect chaos. Through their shared consciousness, Reyna broadcast a message. Welcome to humanity's chaos. Don't worry about fitting in, that's not what we do here. The response came not in words but in sensation, confusion, fear, and underneath it all, hope. Another consciousness reaching out from the darkness between stars, seeking not perfection, but the beauty of imperfection. Director Wade smiled, a rare expression that rippled through both his physical form and his network presence. So, Commander, what do we tell the UN? What do we tell humanity? Reyna turned back to the viewport, watching Earth spin below, a blue marble of beautiful chaos in the cosmic dark. Tell them the truth. First contact wasn't an invasion or a merger. It was an evolution. And it's still happening. Through the network, they all felt the truth of it. Humanity hadn't just survived the synaptics, they had transformed them, and in doing so, transformed themselves. Not into something perfect, but into something perfectly imperfect. Something that could grow, change, and evolve. The real question, she added, feeling the pulse of billions of unique minds through the network, is what will become next. And for the first time in their existence, even the synaptics can't predict the answer. As if in response, the network sparkled with countless points of consciousness, each one a unique note in an endless symphony of thought. Order and chaos, alien and human, all dancing together in a pattern too complex to control and too beautiful to resist. The story of consciousness wasn't ending. It was just beginning to get interesting.